Talofa from Samoa, Aloha from Hawaii, Bulavinaka from Fiji, Afadai from the Micronesian Islands, and Kiorana from Tahiti, and Aotearoa, New Zealand. My name is Hossein Leao. Please subscribe to my channel and like and share my video with other people, your friends, so that more people can see this. This was I want to tell you a little bit about my own journey on how I came to a place of pioneering a way in which the Polynesian culture can be introduced and was introduced to the Christian church and became a vital part of worship and expressions of happiness. In the early days, I was involved with a mission agency that was Western in nature. And therefore, a lot of the music expressions, the dance, the things that were taking place in the organization and in the body of Christ at that time was more or less Western in orientation and Western in presentation. And I sat in some of the meetings enjoying all the things that were going on, but I also yearned for the day when my own expression of my people from the Pacific Islands would be one day be celebrated in more ways than one. Back then, in those days, there was a very hard understanding to overcome that was predominantly accepted by the Christian churches of the Pacific Islands that helped reduce the value of their own expressions in dance. It was highly understood that anything that has to do with culture was evil, and it was of the worship of other gods. And so it was harder to come against that because most of the people that were blocking it right up front are people who are born again and believers. And yet at the same time, we felt in our hearts that this was a very strong leaning and a strong direction for us to take. So I went back to my island and I thought, the best way that I can start this is by going back to my own people and my own setting and start something from there with the Samoan culture as the dominant base to start with. And so in doing so, we came against a lot of reactions from the leaders of the church because they were adamant that anything that has to do with culture, like the drumming, the dances, the color of the costumes and all that, was all related, and there's a very strong understanding that it was related to evil and the worship of other gods. So part of what we were doing was I began to gather some people that were of like-minded with me. And some of them were more advanced in their understanding of how to create music and create dance. So I befriended them and make them my friends under the cause of, I like to explore the possibility of how we can bring God into the culture or bring the culture into God. You know what I mean? So, by the way, my name is Hossein Leao, and if you like what you hear in this channel, please subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. And share and like it so that we can have the YouTube algorithm to share with other people. But that was my initial starting point. So the group came together and we began to teach the dances so that it's authentic, it's real, it represents what the music says about it, and our culture does not need any introduction to celebration because anything in the islands that is a reason for celebration, just everybody celebrate. And so it was a very natural connection to when we come to worship, we're celebrating Jesus and we're celebrating ourselves. And so it was easy to connect to that small core of people. And as we were doing this, we were able to bring some choreographer, people who were, advanced in the creating of dances, choreographing programs. And we also brought some of the musicians, and we had to train our young people that we were working with that it was okay to sing some of the songs from the islands, because it was, again, music, dances, and everything that has to do with culture was associated with evil and ungodliness. And it was hard to change the mindset of that. So we were working with that. And then you find in the traditional churches in the islands that dances and musicians and music is celebrated, but never in the church. It's celebrated in church activities. So it was easy to identify that part, that was where we can relate to the churches at that time. And we're talking about the long-term old church rituals, which is the London Missionary Society, the Methodists, the Catholics, and so forth. But the Pentecostals and all of the evangelical churches, which was, if you want to be a part of the flow of the church in the islands at that time, that was where a lot of the actions was taking place. So that was where all the action of rejection and the feeling of you're evil. And I have had letters written to me and written to the the leader of the organization that I was pioneering this in the islands with, regarding how evil I was, and I was leading many young people to deception. But when you have a conviction that this is something that is very real, and you're pioneering something that will help one day become a place where the church can elevate their worship and celebration to include their own. I'll tell you some more about this when we came to the Hawaiian Islands. And at that time, the hula was not done standing up. Every Christian group that was doing the hula was doing the hula sitting on the chair. Can you imagine? But that was the introduction of the time that I had. I felt that it was very important to pioneer this element of understanding and pioneering some of the intricate ways in which we can incorporate cultural dances, music, and so forth into our people. I remember just in advance, a couple of months later after we finished putting this group together, we traveled the islands, the Samoan Islands, so that I can showcase that this is now happening in the islands, because it's one thing to go and pioneer something in another culture, but to come to the Samoan Islands and pioneer this and made it available to go around in different places, we saw an incredible amount of young people attracted to this form of worship and to this form of entertainment that was wholesome and pure, clean, all of that. So it was a very interesting time. And that was the beginning of a new movement that we started in the islands. And then a couple of months later, I took this same group with me to New Zealand. We went to New Zealand to share with the Maori people, because the next people that we're related to are the Maoris, the Tongans, the Tahitians, and the Hawaiians. But all of them are under the umbrella of these evangelical and Pentecostal churches. Nothing wrong with their belief, but there was a very close mindedness into anything culture is evil. And that was what we were dealing with in the beginning. So I remember we were in a place called Whangarei, up in northern New Zealand island. And we were doing this program with Maori people in a Maori marae, place where Maoris come together and share their stories. And after the performance, two ladies came up to me and they cried with tears in their eyes. And the statement that they made really hit home for me. They began to say to me, so Sandy, now we know we can be Maoris and Christians at the same time. I can't tell you how many of those kind of stories that we have heard over the years as we took this initial group that we started with to many different cultures, and the same response was felt. People began to say, now I know I can be a Christian and also be, in the case of the Navajo Indians and the tribe up in South Dakota, they embrace it with tears, and they said that it's the first time that they have ever felt free from the stranglehold of the Christian church trying to eliminate anything cultural, anything of their native culture. And so it was an awareness that became something that was bigger than us. We just took it for granted that we had this mandate and we were working with this until we began to go to New Zealand, we began to go to the States, Hawaii. And when we came to Hawaii, like I mentioned before, the hula, of course, was done by sitting on the chair with hands. And it's not a hula, it's not a phony thing, but it was because I remember talking to the leader of the group in Hawaii when we watched this, and I said, how in the world can you call it the hula if you're sitting down on a chair and there's a beautiful movement and grace that happens in a woman's body when they do the hula? And it's so half of it is not even acknowledged. And that half was part of what they consider to be evil. So I want to talk to you about this, and it started a whole movement that we took around the world. And the thing that I enjoy the most was when I heard about the major Polynesian church in New Zealand, in Auckland, New Zealand, starting to incorporate their youth and their young people into the expression of their cultures as they worship God. It's a beautiful thing. And so we decided that was going to be a part of our cause that we will be taking to the world, and we coined a term called redemption, cultural redemption, or redeeming the cultures of the nations, to fulfill the Great Commission, because you can't go and express God to a world that is different than the Western world. And so there's a lot of theological jingles that happens. And I hope you can come back and we will review some of the breakthroughs that we saw and continue to see today around the world, because there is that expressions from the Pacific Islands that created a level of openness and a new awareness, new view and perspective of how important our people's expressions be celebrated and how can they be utilized, what can be done so that it can stay to the perspective of a Christian worldview, and at the same time be given an opportunity to fully expressed in its creative abilities. That's my message, and that's the thing I want to talk to you today. Please subscribe and like, and let me know where you are viewing this video from, and I would love to hear a comment from you. Thank you. God bless.